trying your template against it, and you hit the spots until you've got it as close as you can get it. And then you use these what are called cross-arching templates. So this has numbers on it, 1 through 5, and there's 5 of these guys, and at each of those points on the long arch, then you have to fit these templates. Take them off the ring. But that gives you a basic shape, and those modeling or archings are taken off of historic instruments. If you want to try to copy a Stradivarius or a Guarneri, or there's umpteen others, to try to keep within that traditional framework and get that traditional sound that players want, it helps to reproduce the instrument as closely as possible. So that's a fairly simple way of getting all the curvature right. Violin making lesson. This is the curly maple that's part of the back.
Very pretty.
Very figured. That's also a curly maple. You can see that. Make yourself a little template of the what's called the F hole, and then you lay that out, draw it out, and then I can use that same template for both sides just to get some symmetry, right? And so then I had it drawn out, and I have a saw that's up on the board over there that I can get in there and sort of skirt around all this big wide width and just roughly saw it out. And then you come in with these little pointy knives, little files. I have a couple of little sanding sticks to help with the circular ends, and just trim through the line. The essential part of the mechanics of a violin, which really make it work and allow it to amplify those little string vibrations but have such a big sound, is the presence of the sound post in conjunction with the bridge. And basically, it's a little dowel of wood. It'll be spruce just like the top, almost that diameter, and it basically sits right about there, and it's just friction fit. You take that dowel of wood and you slip it in through the F hole, and it's attached to the end of a strange contraption called a sound post fitting tool. Let's see. And jam it in the side like that. Go in through the hole, and then it has to be fit precisely in length in these angles at the ends, so that as you pull it back into position, it just sits there gently. And it has to sit directly under one of the feet that's on the bridge. So it's only got one place it should be, and it has to fit there just right.
Oh my.
Chunk of wood that'll get turned into the neck, and you can see, did I have a template here? Yeah, here's a template. So this template was used on both sides of the block to lay out these basic curves. And it's a bit of a trick to get this spiral drawn, so that's what this series of dots is for. It just basically, I can do dots and then just sketch in the scroll by hand after that. And that kind of looks like a finished piece, but it's actually far from finished. There's a lot of shaping that has to be done. This basically has to be reduced in size, but maintain a nice curve, and then will eventually get glued on like so. And then the finishing is just a whole nother thing. Violin makers go crazy with finishing. And I don't know how it was when you were growing up, but when I was a kid, it was like, oh, what makes a Stradivarius violin great is its varnish. It was all just whatever varnish you painted on there. Nobody thought two things about all this other stuff
Yeah.
I was just talking about, but thankfully people have come to their senses and realized, yes, he put on very nice varnish, but that it's the whole thing coming together, and that's just the crowning part, is putting on a good coat of varnish, which for the way I'm doing it right now, there's like a sealing and a coloring phase, and then an undercoat and an overcoat, and so it's kind of complicated and takes a while to do the final finishing.
You have to wait for like each layer to dry and then you go back and something like that, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it takes some time. The first question is like, who are the instruments for? And I mean, my intention is they're for music school, conservatory students, serious musicians on up, basically. The way I got started in this is, to begin with, I was interested in building acoustic guitars. So I did a guitar.
Do you still?
Well, I haven't for a couple of years because I've just been doing the violins, but I have a couple of commissions out there that are waiting on me to slow down on the violin thing. But that's what got me interested in woodworking. I was still in college at the time and got involved in a project building a classical guitar. So I built the first violin for my eldest daughter, Lita, and she was going to school at Chapel Hill at the time. She had a scholarship there as a music student.
Wow.
And I brought this one down that I just made, and it was like, well, here you go, Lita, And she, we went in a big room, and there were, a couple of her friends there, and she gave it a try, and it was like, wow, this thing sounds so much better than what she'd been playing. There was some faults with the construction and that kind of stuff, but it was like the sound coming out of it was amazing. So she gave back the other instrument and adopted that one, so that was really just very, very encouraging. I had no trouble keeping up with them for the first 2 years. When they hit 5 and 6 years old, they were just
musical prodigies.
Yeah, well, not really, but they, it was at a point where I was going to start to need to practice to keep up with them. As it was, just kind of working with them and attending the lesson, I could keep up with the rate of development at that point. And I just didn't really have the time to do that, so I got through the first book out of 10 books. And they kept going. So another 10, 12, 15 years went by, and I'm a guitar player. I mentioned I was into building guitars, but I was never a violin player. But if you're going to build violins, you need to know how to play a little bit. Yeah, that's right. And so at the outset, I had them around.